now we go to the sign-off hotline as we kick back into the National League discussion, and now we'll talk Cincinnati Reds baseball with John Fay from the Cincinnati Enquirer. John, welcome inside the Sports Sign-Off. Thanks for taking some time for us here today.
No problem.
All right, tons of intrigue, surrounding your team, the Cincinnati Reds, as you cover there in Cincinnati. But talk about Aroldis Chapman, the big young phenom there in the rotation, or maybe he's not. Look, there's a couple of rookies, coming into the season, Jason Hayward, Steven Strasburg, but you guys have one of them in Chapman. Will he start in the rotation here, or is he going to have to start in the minors in 2010?
He will not start in the rotation. He had a little bit of a back issue, and 2 outings ago it caused him to miss a few days, and his innings aren't going to be where they need to be for him to start in the 5th spot.
Okay, what point of the season do you think that he'd be ready? What are they looking for as far as the Reds and Dusty Baker?
I think it could be early. It depends a little bit on how. They're probably going to go with either Mike Leake or Travis Wood, both rookies, as the 5th starter. If those guys are struggling and Chapman's pitching well, I think you'll see the move early. But, he needs to get down in the minors, build his innings up. And I think, he's probably, you're talking the end of April at the earliest. He hasn't gone. He went 2 innings today and looked pretty good, but he's only gone 3 innings once. So I think that's a concern. They don't want to push him because of the back thing. And, I think it's probably sometime in May is a reasonable estimate.
Okay, sticking with the pitching here, I'm hearing good things from Aaron Harang getting his delivery back, and then we also saw good things from Bronson Arroyo and Homer Bailey. Between those 2 guys, they finished 0-9, 7-1 record. Those top 3 guys in the rotation, I think, obviously going to be a key point to the Reds contending for a wild card. Talk about those pitchers there at the top of the rotation for the Cincinnati Reds.
Well, I think Harang's the biggest question on the team. He went, I think, 6 in 14 last year. He won 6 games the year before. 2 years previous to that, he won 16 games each. So I think they need him to be closer to the way he was when he was one of the better pitchers in the National League. He's worked on some things, and he's real happy with them, but he hasn't gotten the results in spring. So I think it's just paramount that he pitches well. And Arroyo was one of the better pitchers in the National League from about July 10th on. So, I think you can count on him being pretty consistent. He's probably going to win, 14, 15 games. Bailey was terrific at the end, and the other guy, the guy who's going to make the second start, is Johnny Cueto. Cueto started off great last year, had a lull where he couldn't win a game, and then he finished pretty strong. So I think they're pretty solid in their top 4, and these 2 kids, one of which is going to be the 5th starter, have been really good in spring training. So I think, and they're going to be having Chapman at AAA or AA or wherever they decide to start him. So I think, overall the depth in the rotation is really good.
Yeah, you talked about Johnny Cueto. He did have a tale of 2 seasons last year, and he had some shoulder problems. Got him a trip to the disabled list. Is he 100% and ready to go this year? Because I think, if he can be a number 2 guy in this rotation, that would only obviously pay dividends for the Cincinnati Reds.
Well, I don't think he actually had any shoulder problems. I think they just shut him down because he pitched in winter ball, then he pitched for the Dominican team in the WBC. So I think, he wasn't getting the results, and his innings were up, so they were a little concerned. So they just shut him down, and he came back and he was pretty good. I mean, he's a guy who really competes. He went 11-11 last year. I think he won 9 games the year before, and he'll start the season at 23 years old. So, he has great potential. So, I think that's what they're kind of hanging their hat on here is that, this year and down the road, the rotation's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I was talking with John Fay, Cincinnati Enquirer writer for the coverage of Cincinnati Reds. John, let's go to the offensive side here. Jay Bruce and Joey Votto, the 2 big bats there on the offensive side for the Cincinnati Reds. A bit of a sophomore slump in 2009 for Jay Bruce. 57 games on the disabled list, but he did have a strong finish. 426 on base percentage and slugging percentage of 652. Where are these guys right now? Can they be, the monsters in that lineup and have a consistent year for the offensive side for the Reds?
Well, I think in Votto's case, they can be pretty sure of what they're going to get. He was 3rd in the National League in on-base plus slugging last year. He started off this spring slow, and then he really heated up. So I think they're really secure in what they're going to get with him. With Bruce, you know, as you said, he got hurt. He broke the wrist in the game in New York and, you know, missed 8 weeks. And when he came back, he was pretty good. I think he has tremendous upside potential. And he's 22 years old, so we'll see with him. You know, I think they got some guys around him where they don't have to count on Bruce tremendously, but I think for them to be good, to contend, I think he has to be pretty good.
Do they have a leadoff guy right now? Because, you know, Dickerson a year ago, on-base percentage, I think, just over 300, and obviously not going to get the job done at the leadoff position. You know, are they relying on him, or are they looking to what were they looking at in spring training, and who is going to be their leadoff guy?
Well, I think actually Dickerson's on base was like 370, so you know he's decent in that spot, but he basically lost the center field job to Drew Stubbs. You know, he's a first-round pick a few years ago, and he's had a great spring. He hit his 5th home run today. His average is over 300. He runs really well. He's a good defensive center fielder. He's not ideally suited for the leadoff spot, but they don't have anybody who is. And you know, I think this guy just has so much upside potential, and he ended up the year in the leadoff spot. Played there. I think he had 180 at bats. You know, 42 games. And he played pretty well, but you know, I think he's shown power this year like they haven't seen before. So, you know, I think he's going to be the guy. You know, I think the question about the lineup more than anything is the first 2 hitters. You know, they brought in Orlando Cabrera. He's going to play shortstop and hit second, you know, in front of Votto. So I think those guys are a bit of a question. You know, I think that's a question about this team, whether they can score enough runs to be in contention.
Yeah, a lot of expectations, high expectations there at Cincinnati. You know, before we let you go, John, prediction, if you will. I hear a lot of, you know, a buzz around that this team can contend in the National League as far as the wild card position. Some people even going to have to say that maybe they're ready to contend with the Cardinals. I think that's a little bit premature. But is this a good enough team? Can they put the pieces together and have a consistent year to contend with the wild card with teams like the Braves and the Marlins?
Well, you know, I think as Dusty Baker said, somebody asked him about it a couple of weeks ago, and this team hasn't had a winning season in 9 years. I think the first step is to kind of get out there and play above 500 and build some confidence because while they have some veterans in the lineup, this is basically a young team, particularly as far as position players. So, you know, I think if they can get off to a decent start, I think if the pitching's as good as they expect, and I have no reason to believe it won't be, I think they'll hang in there, and I don't think you have to win 95 games to win the division or the wild card in the National League this year. So, you know, I think if they can get off to a good start and kind of get rolling, I think, yeah, they got a chance to hang in there.
All right, well, we look forward to the season and hopefully catching up with you, you know, the Cincinnati Reds here, maybe make a splash in the National League and compete for the wild card. John Fay from the Cincinnati Enquirer, thank you for your time, sir. We'll catch up with you soon.
All right, thanks.
All right, John Fay from the Cincinnati Enquirer here on the Sports Sound Off.